everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. My goal here is to help us all connect, inspire, and create. And every week, I invite a speaker to share a bit of inspiration, creativity, and their passion for art through photography. You can find the schedule for our upcoming presentations on my website at lindanickell.com. Under Happiness Hour, you'll find the links to previous sessions on my YouTube channel. So my guest tonight is Bea Rosenleaf. Bea is a Montana-based artist and a photographer, and with a little digital magic and a lot of creative vision, she makes unique pieces of art. Bea often uses different mediums such as encaustic wax or resin, but tonight she's going to introduce us to a process called Cyanotype. In her presentation, The Alchemy of Alternative Photography, Bea will break down this art form by talking about the various potions that can be used to process them, tone them, and how to create interesting textures. She'll discuss the chemicals you need, paper options, botanicals, and the type of light you need to create the basic cyanotype. Cyanotypes can be as simple or as complex as you wish them to be. And this is a wonderful opportunity to learn an alternative photographic medium. Bea, welcome to the Happiness Hour.
Thanks for having me, Linda. I'm honored to be here.
So before you get started, this is where I like to say how, if I know somebody, how I know them. This group has probably listened to me rattle on about this group of people I met in the Smokies many years ago that were honestly instrumental in me working a little bit harder at my photography. And Bea was one of those people that attended this little group outing and was so absolutely welcoming. And one afternoon, everybody said, gather around, Bea's gonna show us something really, interesting and new. And we gathered around and she pulled out flowers and tulle and some, I guess, netting or tulle is what I think that was, ribbon. And I watched her wrap things around her lens and fluff it out and pull out flowers. And I'm thinking, I don't know what she's doing. I have no idea what she's doing. But when she showed us the image on the back of her camera, and I think you actually were tethered at that point, I was just like, oh my God, that's really, really cool. And what she had done was she'd just taken these really up close macros and just applied a technique that I'd never seen. I mean, a lot of stuff happened that weekend or that week I was with you that I hadn't seen, but this was just one more layer of, I have so much to learn. And so when I invited Bea to come, I thought, I'm gonna get her to teach all this, but she said, I'd really like to talk about cyanotype. And I'll let you talk about anything you want, Bea. So with that, I'm going to hand it over. Tell us, I know a little bit about you and where you're at, but for the people that don't know you, kind of introduce yourself. If I skimmed over, I did. I skimmed over a little bit of, what you really do with your art. So give us just a minute of some background of how you got started and why you do the wonderful things that you do.
Well, I come from an artsy family. My father was pretty artistic, and my mother was very artistic, and they were both musically inclined. Unfortunately, the musical gene skipped me, and it went to both of my boys, but that's okay. I'll just listen to music since I can't play it or sing. But anyway, and I grew up in the service, and so I grew up halfway around the world in Taiwan and Guam, all over the United States. And I think that was my foundation for learning color and, of course, learning about other cultures and the artists in Taiwan were just amazing. They're basically like Chinese artists. So there was a lot of sumi painting and painting on cloth. And one of my English students that I taught did a painting for me on cloth. And that kind of inspired me. But then we came back to the States. I graduated from high school. I became a mother very young. So there was no time for art or photography. And of course, my dad had given me a camera when I was little. I think almost all of us can say that we started with a camera that our parents gave us. And so anyway, the years went by, and I always said that I was going to retire early and I was going to do my art, have a studio, and have an art studio. Well, little did I know that because of health problems that I was going to be forced to retire. And I was only about 40, 42, somewhere in there. And so, yeah, the camera became really important. And then I got married and we were able to travel. And we spent a summer in Yellowstone, working in Yellowstone, and I just had a little point and shoot 35 millimeter camera. I went to a workshop, a guy from Kodak was there, and that really inspired me. And so when we came home, the next year we decided we were asked to go to Alaska to work for Princess Cruise Lines. And so I thought, I need a camera. So the first digital camera was born, and it was just a little Coolpix, Nikon Coolpix, but that's what I spent taking pictures in Alaska. And from there, it's just one thing after another. And I decided that I love landscapes. I love doing kids, but I don't like putting up with their parents. So I quit doing portrait work. And so my portrait work turned to flowers, and the flowers turned to doing something different because I didn't want to be the same as everybody else. And my landscapes and everything, you know, I always say, like, I love John Sharp, and his photography is phenomenal, and it's tack sharp and everything. Mine is not, but that's okay, because I don't care if mine is tack sharp, because I turn mine into digital paintings. And so I'm always experimenting with things. And long story short is I ran across a class on doing cyanotypes, and it was just fascinating to me. And it's like magical the way that it happens. And so I thought I'd really like to share that experience with everybody tonight, instead of doing my flower technique that I do. I haven't done it for quite a while because of circumstances around my house. I haven't been able to continue doing that. So I'm finding other things to do in the meantime. And cyanotype was one of them. Encaustic art, playing with encaustic wax is another one. And I take a lot of my photography and finish it with encaustic art or encaustic wax. And in fact, right now I'm taking one of my horse pictures from Salt Lake with the wild horses, and I'm putting it on a 3D piece on a 4x4 posts for an art show coming up in September. And he's printed on tissue paper, and then will be layered into the encaustic wax. In fact, I'm working on him now, so he's my project for the moment. So the cyanotype, I've got a few pieces to share with you tonight, and those are eventually either going to be finished in resin or in encaustic wax. The ones that have the finer detail, I'm going to finish with resin to keep the detail, because when you finish things with encaustic wax, it becomes kind of ethereal and like a veil is over it. So it's not, you lose the detail. But it looks beautiful finished as encaustic art. But unfortunately, I don't have any of those finished yet. So all I can do is share the raw pictures that I have developed. But you know, the cyanotype is the earliest form of photography, and that's why I kind of thought it would fit with this, because it's going back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's important to go back to the beginning in order to understand now. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
That's wonderful. So, do you have any of those pieces on your website that were finished, or is this kind of a new process for you?
It's been a new process. I've been working on it for a year. So what I'm going to share with you tonight is not on my website yet, because they're not finished. They're just kind of in raw form. And as soon as they are finished, I will share them. And I'm thinking about putting a couple pieces into the upcoming art show in September. So it's not wildlife, but that's okay. They said that it's an open subject, so I
Yeah,
thought I'd put it in there for something different. See,
yeah.
see how
It's your
you see
exhibit.
it.
You can do anything you'd like. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, let's get started so that I can kind of figure out what are you talking about.
Well, it's relatively a simple project. Um, the process is real easy. So we'll just go ahead and get started. Can you see my screen?
I can.
All right, cool beans. It worked.
It's like magic. And for those of you who are laughing because we had some issues earlier on, but they came right up. There you go.
All right. So this is a piece that I have done that's finished, and we'll go through. I'll tell you how it's done as we go through this. So, oops, I think it went one too many. There we go. So I won't bore you with a lot of the historical details, but Sir John Herschel is the one who developed this process in 1842. And he was trying to look for a way to reproduce his notes and his diagrams. And how he came up with it, I don't know, but there's a lot of information on Wikipedia. There's a whole page of cyanotype and things, if you're interested in it, to references that you can go look at. And Anna Atkins was a friend of Herschel's. And so she took the process a little further and created a book out of all of her plants, her seaweed collection. And I can't remember where that book is on display at, but there used to be several copies of it. And I think I read that there's only like 5 copies left. But there's pictures. You can look up Anna Atkins and find pictures on Google. This one up here is one of her seaweeds that's in this book. And this is just my imagination. It's of what Sir Herschel's prints may have looked like, because it has notes and it's got diagrams and everything. And so it's just kind of my imagination running away from me. So, but cyano means blue. And so the process, and it's an ancient, well, 1842, to me that's ancient, that was a long time ago. And you can change the blue color, but everything for the old stuff was blue. So this is the largest cyanotype, and this was done in 2017. And Stefanos Tiskaris, I'm assuming that's how he pronounces his name, wanted to break the Guinness World Record for the largest cyanotype print. A lady had done it like 2 years previously, and then he wanted to beat that one. So we're at almost 3,000 square feet, and you can see this laid out. And he did it in front of a hotel there in Greece, and then just laid people on the processed, I think it's fabric that he used, because it only took 10 to 15 minutes to process, and fabric processes quicker than paper does. So anyway, that's pretty big. That's a lot of people. So what do you need? These are the supplies, and I use Jacquard Cyanotype, parts A, part B. It comes as a kit, and it's potassium ferrocyanide and ferric ammonium citrate. And I hope you know I practiced really hard so that I could say those right.
You kind of rolled off your tongue really smoothly, and I'm like, okay.
I practiced a lot, especially the ferrocyanide.
Yeah.
So, and a container for the mixing the chemical, and you mix the chemical 1 to 1. I just have a little plastic container that the grandkids had Jello in, and I'd saved it because I figured it'd be good in art, you know, mixing things, and it works really well. And so I just put a cap full of one. What you do is you take these 2 containers, and you put water in them, and let it set for 24 hours. And then you mix it 1 to 1. So just a capful of one and a capful to the other. And it makes kind of a light, kind of a pukey green color solution. And then you take that and brush it on your paper. Now, my friend and I have, when we first started it, we had some really cheap watercolor paper. And so, and I'll show you the difference between the real cheap stuff and the more moderately priced and the more expensive. So now I use the Fabriano's watercolor paper. It's a hot press. And then the Hahnemühle Platinum Rag, which is a photo processing paper. And it is kind of spendy, but for the results, it's well worth spending more money if you want to do this to continue to make a piece of art out of it and, you know, hang it or whatever. And then you use hockey brushes. And actually, when you say hockey brushes, that's like saying brush, because hockey means brush in Japanese. And they're a very soft, bristled, natural bristled brush. They work wonderful for putting the solution on the paper. I tried some cheap chip brushes, and I didn't like the results as well as I do with the hockey brushes. And then you need like a sturdy board. You could use a piece of plywood. You could use foam core board, anything, even a thicker cardboard you could use for the bottom. And then you need a piece of glass or a piece of plexiglass. Oops, sorry, that wasn't supposed to happen. A piece of plexiglass. And the plexiglass, of course, won't break where the glass will. But I've got glass because it was cheaper, and I just went to my local glass shop and they cut it for me. I think I got 10 pieces for $8. And then, of course, you need something to help process this, and what you use is either UV light or the sunlight. I have a UV light, which I have a picture of later on here showing you. And what you do is you create what you want your image to be on the paper, and then you sandwich them together and put them under the light to process, which I've got some pictures showing that too. So what are you going to make an image out of? Well, botanicals work really well. You can use flowers, you can use leaves, you can use, these we got at a local florist shop. And I really like these real dainty, ferny looking plants. They make really awesome images. Bigger leaves will make big splotches of white. but there's things that you can do with those to change those big splotches of white. And then like carrot tops and herbs like dill and cilantro, rosemary works really well. And those are all relatively cheap. And then these last ones, skeleton leaves, this was kind of an experiment that I did. I actually made them for to inlay them in caustic wax, but I thought I'd try them on the cyanotypes, and I was kind of pleased with what turned out. But you can make these, they're kind of expensive to buy them, but you can make them, and all they are is leaves from some florist things that I had bought. And then you just they have to have a really good vein system, and then you just take them and you can either put them in water and let them set for 2 weeks, or you can speed up the process and put them in water with soda and baking soda and cook them from anywhere from an hour to 2 or 3 hours. These were thicker leaves, so it took about 4 hours. And then after they cooled, then you take a soft toothbrush and you just break that membrane off, and it leaves the veins. It's kind of a fun process. And then you can take the blue, you can add colors to it to add interest. And so I have like some weld extract, and I have some chestnut. I didn't like the chestnut extract, but it can be used, I think, in moderation. I think I used too much of it. And then madder root, and all you do is take the extract, and you can get it off of Etsy, and you boil it in a pot of water for about an hour, and then let it cool, and then put it in a spray bottle. And then I'll show you some of the pieces that I did using that. And then to texturize, you can use saran wrap. And the nice thing about saran wrap is that you can take it after you're done. You don't have to throw it away. You can wash it off and reuse it. So this is kind of an economical and organic process, because you're using organic materials and not man-made stuff. And you can use salt. The salt works just like it does with watercolor. If you're familiar with texturizing watercolors, you just sprinkle it with salt. And the vinegar kind of will bleach the blue a little bit. Now, I think I have my vinegar watered down too much, because it really hasn't been working the way I expected it to. And then soap bubbles are kind of fun to play with to add texture to your print. So the process. So pick out your subjects. You're creating a masterpiece, remember. And so I always take my botanical material that I want to make the print out of, like here, and I put it on a piece of plain paper, because once you coat your paper, the light is going to start processing it, and it's going to start turning. And what I usually do is I will do several pieces of paper. I can usually get, depending on the size, I can get 8 to 10 sheets of paper coated with just 1 cap of each of solution. So it goes a long ways. And you can see on this one here, I'm not real careful about how I put it on there, and I don't tape my edges. I just slop it on there. And I like the organic edges a lot better than the square edges. That's just me. I'm kind of strange that way. So what I do is I kind of try to make my composition on the back of an unprocessed piece of paper to make it quicker, because once you expose this paper to light, it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna start to process and develop. And so you need to work quickly. And If you have a pair of tweezers, sometimes that helps to get these leaves spread out. Get the ferny stuff on the dill spread out. And have a little pair of scissors nearby to kind of cut off extras. So once I decided what I wanted to do, then I put it on the paper, and you can see this has already started to turn dark. But I went ahead and thought, well, I'll go ahead and use it anyway and see what happens. So I put the botanicals down in an arrangement that I liked, and I sprinkled them with some salt. And this yellow is weld. And so you can see that it kind of adds a different color to it, but it's going to look completely different once it's processed. And I think on these four, that's all I put on there was the weld and a little bit of vinegar and the salt. And once you can see that it's sandwiched there, I have, those are high-tech clips, putting those together. They're just big office clips. I have a lot of high-tech equipment here that I use. So this is my high-tech developing box and UV light. It's just a cardboard box with a hole cut in it to fit the UV light. And the UV light is 5x7. You can get bigger ones. You can buy them. I got this one off of Amazon, and I think it was like $46 or something like that. When I did these, it was still cold and wintertime, and so I'm kind of a warm, even though I live in Montana, I'm not a snow baby, and so I stay in the house and I process things in the house. And because of my things that are going on, I haven't been able to do any outside stuff this summer yet. And so after, this was a 20-minute process. It developed under the UV light. What you do is you just set this sandwich in the bottom of the box and then put the UV light over the hole and turn it on. And then I just used the timer on my phone, and I checked it at about 20 minutes, and it turns this rust color. And so, and you can see how the yellow is from the matter. It's still yellow when there was no solution. So then after you develop it, then it has to have a water bath, just like when you develop film, it has to have the bath. Well, this isn't a chemical bath. It's just a water bath to wash the chemicals out of. And so these I bought, they are photo developing trays because I want to do some bigger pieces. So I didn't want to use little containers, and that's why I bought these. But my table's only big enough for 2 of them, so I have to dump one out and fill the 3rd one. So I do that 3 times. And if it needs it a 4th time, it'll be done a 4th time. But you have to neutralize the chemicals so that they don't continue to process. Because if they continue to process, then you will eventually lose the image. If you don't process it enough, you won't get the image. And if you process it too much, then you won't have an image. So you can kind of see how the water is discolored here. And then finally, by the last bath, there was no more color. And at this point, then I just hang them up to dry, just like if you were in a developing room, developing film, you hang them up to dry. And oh, I forgot, when you're developing, you agitate the water and to get that chemical out of them. So.
Are you using just regular water in the water bath?
Yep, just water out of my sink that's behind me here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's real easy here the way I have it set up because the table's close by, and when I get the water in those trays, they're so big that it's kind of heavy. So I can just turn around and put it on the table. It's a pretty good setup. So once you have the clean water, that developing part is complete, and then you just hang them up. And so these will hang to dry for about 24 hours because they do continue to oxidize. And that blue what it looks like in the tray isn't necessarily what it's going to look like once it's dry. Sometimes they turn out darker, sometimes they turn out lighter. Sometimes these colored parts will completely disappear. It really is a unique process, and it's one that you never know exactly what you're going to get. Now, if you're developing outside, sometimes if you're doing a wet process, like that's what I was doing here with the madder or the weld root and the vinegar, that's called a wet process. You can do a dry process, which takes less time to develop. The wet process takes a little bit longer. And if it's in the sunlight, it may take longer also. Some people have said that some of their things have taken up to 2 days to process. And you want to do it on a fairly sunny day. You can do it if there's cloud cover, but it's better to do it if it's not a real thick cloud cover. So here's some pieces that are done. This one isn't truly, this is a fake frame. I'll be honest. I'll come clean. It's not really framed. I just put it in a digital frame so that it looked good. But you can see like these spots here. I wasn't really happy with the soap bubbles because they didn't do what I wanted them to do. But I guess that's part of the process. But you can see the texture that's in there. And I really like the texture that it creates because I think the texture is what brings added interest into the images. This is one that had some leaves that were fairly dense. And I can't remember what all I used on this. I think I used the madder root and the, I was going to bring those prints up because I have them written on the back. I think I used the weld and the madder root. The madder root is kind of a reddish color, but once it's developed and roots down, it kind of changes a little bit. And then this one is kind of my favorite. This is the chestnut. It turned the brown. And then all of these creases and everything is from the plastic wrap. And then these dots are from the salt. I really like this one. It's got a lot of interest, and I think once it's finished in a piece of art, it's going to look really cool.
Yeah.
And this one was done, well, I think that's the same piece, just closer up. So you can see the detail a little bit better. And then this one is the skeleton leaves that I showed you. What I was trying to build a butterfly, but it didn't quite, I guess if you really use your imagination. The antennas are here and the body's here, but yeah, and you can see the dark blue. That was the chemical that isn't covered. It's through those holes that are in the leaves, but you can see the texture of the leaves through there. And I used salt and I think vinegar. And I think I used some weld on this one. And then these were sprigs of herbs. I think this was dill. No, it wasn't dill because that's not frilly enough for dill. I don't remember what it was. And then these pieces here are some, my neighbor had some grass that they didn't get cut from last year. And so these are the heads of the grass. It was just dried grass. And I thought it was kind of interesting to use for a picture. So these are from those 4 that I showed you that were hanging. And you can see how some of the color seeps up into underneath the leaves. And that's what makes it so interesting, because like this one, the texture on this one, I really like it.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of weld coloring right here, and you can see the yellow in here. And the same with these. Now this is Bill here. And then these are I told you I'd show you the first 4 that I ever did. The course that I took, the gal uses a rolling pin, and she puts her material down here. She uses a rolling pin, and that will give the green color. I didn't have a rolling pin, but I had a can of canned hot beans, I think, or something I had canned years ago. It was a quart can, and it was heavy, and so I used that to roll. And you just put a piece of I found she doesn't use anything when she rolls over it, but I found that things stuck to the glass, so I used a piece of wax paper and put down, and then I rolled over it. And so you can see the green that was transferred from that piece of dill, and so it was processed into it. But you can tell that this was cheaper paper by the color. And I think I overexposed it because it is kind of a really dark green or dark blue. And these were rose leaves. Now on this one, I could go further and I could put another layer of solution over it and lay some lace or stencil or something else to put another image over the top, so you have a double image, which is kind of cool. That's my next project when I find some big leaves. My tool.
So can I get some clarification for Karen? She's asking, so do you put down you put your leaves down with your vinegar and salt and saran wrap all under the glass, and then you put in the light, or do you add the salt and vinegar later?
No, you process the salt and vinegar. You put it on the paper, you put your botanicals on the paper, and then you spritz it with something to color it if that's what you want. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can do like this one, which is nothing but this. And all I did was roll it, and it gave it that green color there that didn't wash out. But this one has nothing but the solution and the material on there. And then so you do that, and then you put the glass over it, and then you put it under the light.
Okay.
So that's it. That was pretty fast.
It was pretty fast. It was, but that's okay. But I think that's okay, because sometimes we go into these craft items or craft or arts and projects, and sometimes we don't have a lot of time, but we want to create something. So this is a perfect example of, you can make it really complicated, because I know you do, but you can also just look for those simple leaves, and just so that you can start something and finish it, and you feel like you've got something, you've accomplished something, because not everybody has a lot of free time. And so I think this is an introduction to something that you can build into making it really, really complicated or super simple. And I think you explained it really easily, and it just showing those steps makes it, like, I can do this. It's not going to take a lot of time.
Yeah, it's real easy to do. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
And you can make digital negatives on transparencies out of your digital photographs. You just need to make sure that they're real contrasty, and you change them into a black and white, and then you invert them so that they look like like a negative used to look like when we had film. And you can process that. I did try it, but the image that I did, it wasn't dark enough. And so I didn't share that because it was a flop. one of my experiments that flopped.
It's nice to admit that you flop.
I flopped.
Okay. Why don't you take down your screen? Let me just run through here to see if there's any questions that I missed. There really weren't a lot of questions, but there was a lot of comments for you, B, that are, you know, people are finding this fascinating. And I have to admit, I was looking at these going, I do not have room for one more hobby. But I know that one day I will go and visit you because you live in Montana and that's
Yes, I
my happy
do.
place and I need to get up there. So maybe we can play in your studio
Yes,
one
we
of these
can.
days.
And the other thing too is if you're a landscape photographer and you're going out and you're doing photography while you're doing your landscape photography,
Yeah.
you can pick up botanicals, pick up leaves, weeds. If you're in the forest, oak leaves. I don't have too many oak trees around here. I wish I did because I love them. But and those big leaves you can take and put into a really cool arrangement and process it the first time, and then the second time you can go over it. And if you use stencils, you need to take some black spray paint and paint them so that the light doesn't go through, and so the light will only go through the opening of the stencil part. And so that's my next project, is that I'm going to try and do that because I got 10,000 stencils. And of course, that's something that has to be tried.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that you just got to find time to pull out your toys and
Yeah.
play and experiment.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the cyanotype stuff is going to be set to the side until I can get the artwork picked out for this upcoming art show. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, B, I know that you don't have a lot of time right now, but you will soon. And I so appreciate that you came and you shared. Again, people that come here and share what they know, it's priceless. It's absolutely priceless. And I hopefully you inspired somebody to try this or to consider going to the craft store and looking for those chemicals. I don't know how we're going to pronounce them, but I will. I'll have to somehow link them somewhere, and so people can find them. Thank you from me to you for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome.
I really appreciate it. And, I had this, crazy idea of just having people come in and talk about what they do and what they find interesting and how they're putting their creativity to use. And I really never thought anybody would say, yes, I'll come. And I just, I'm always surprised how generous people are with their time because, just putting together a little presentation, it's never just 5 minutes. You've got to plot these things out and photograph them and then put them to a slideshow. So I know that you don't have a lot of free time, and I appreciate it. And on behalf of the group in this room, I'm going to thank you from all of us. So guys, you can connect with Bea at bearosenleaf.com. And if you're on Instagram, look for her at Bea Rosenleaf. And next week, Don Simpson will be here to present Improving Photography Through Gesture. And until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.